The sea was restless that night, whispering secrets in the wind as Captain Roman Drake stood at the helm of his mighty ship, the Storm Reaver, his silhouette cut against the silver moon, dark as the abyss below. Salt clung to his rugged skin, tracing the scars of old battles, and his sea-green eyes glowed like jewels stolen from the ocean's depths. "The map says the pearl is here," murmured Finnick Tidebane, Roman's first mate, rolling the parchment open against a wooden crate. "But the warning, beware the siren's wrath. That's no sailor's joke." Roman chuckled, his voice rich with mischief. "Legends exist to make cowards of men, Finn." His fingers, calloused by the sword, traced the map's ink lines. "If a siren stands between me and the pearl, then let her sing me a song worth remembering." A hush fell over the deck. The waves, once playful, turned sluggish, as if the ocean itself had paused to listen. The wind faded, leaving the ship adrift in eerie stillness. Then, like a thread of silk weaving through the night, it began the melody. It came not from a throat, but from the very heart of the sea. It seeped through the wood, the sails, the bones of every man aboard. A song not meant for mortal ears, yet irresistible, as if the ocean had learned the language of longing. Ronan felt it wrap around his ribs, tugging at something buried deep within. The laughter in his eyes dimmed. His hand fell from the map. Then she rose. From the water's glassy surface, she emerged like a dream woven from moonlight. Her hair, long as the tides and dark as the midnight sea, curled in weightless waves. Selene, the siren of moonlit tides, watched them with eyes that held the color of dawn breaking over endless waters. She was not of this world, yet she belonged to it more than any creature ever had. The crew staggered back, men gripping weapons with trembling hands. Even Finnick, steady as the tides, muttered a curse beneath his breath. But Ronan, he stepped forward. "You," he murmured, as if she were a story he had once heard in another life. Selene tilted her head, the corners of her lips curling like the edges of a secret. She did not speak, yet her song continued, the notes slipping between them like unseen fingers tracing the air. "You sing of lost souls," Ronan said, voice quieter now. "Do you call me to join them?" Selene drifted closer, the water parting around her like a lover's sigh. Her fingers brushed the wooden hull, delicate yet powerful enough to command the ocean itself. A single pearl adorned her throat, shimmering with an unnatural light. Ronan should have turned away, should have ordered his men to sail, but the melody held him captive, not by force, but by invitation. His heart, hardened by years of conquest, softened at the edges. The song whispered not of death, but of surrender, not of fear, but of something far more dangerous. Selene lifted a hand, palm open, an unspoken choice. Roman hesitated only for a breath. Then slowly, he reached out, fingertips just grazing hers, when suddenly, a wave crashed against the hull, violent and unprovoked. The ship lurched, the spell shattered, men scrambling as the ocean roared in fury. Selene's eyes darkened, the glow fading from her pearl. The moment was gone. With a final, unreadable look, she slipped beneath the surface, vanishing into the abyss as if she had never been there at all. But Ronan knew better. She was not a dream, not a trick of the sea. She was real. And she had been waiting for him. The ocean had many voices. Some whispered like a lover's breath. Others roared like an untamed beast. But tonight it only murmured, as if guarding a secret too sacred to share. Captain Roman Drake stood at the ship's prow, staring at the waters that had swallowed her whole. The wind curled through his dark hair, teasing the edges of his weathered coat, but he felt no cold, only the lingering warmth of something unknown, something unfinished. He had touched her, barely, but enough. Enough to know she was not a trick of the moon or a sailor's fable. Selene, the siren of moonlit tides, was real, and the memory of her haunted him like the tide that always returned to shore. "She's in your head, Captain," Finnick Tidebane muttered, stepping beside him. "You know what they say, fall for a siren, and you'll never set foot on land again." Ronan smirked, though the weight in his chest betrayed him. Who said anything about falling? Finnick exhaled, rubbing his jaw. "Then why haven't we turned back?" Ronan had no answer. Because the truth was woven between the waves, between the space where her song still echoed. And then, a ripple, a shimmer, a pull stronger than gravity itself. The sea stirred, and from its depths she rose again. Selene. The water draped over her like a gown of liquid silver, cascading down her shoulders, tracing the delicate curves of a being neither human nor entirely of the sea. Moonlight kissed her skin, making her glow like something celestial, something eternal. This time she was closer. This time she did not vanish. Ronan did not move, did not speak, afraid that even a breath might break the fragile thread between them. Her gaze held his, the color of dawn over restless tides, searching, questioning. And then she smiled. Not in the way mortals do, not with lips alone, but with her entire being, as if the ocean itself had sighed in recognition. Roman took a step forward, his hand resting on the wooden rail. You came back. Her head tilted, dark waves of hair slipping over her shoulder. The pearl at her throat gleamed softly, pulsing like a heartbeat. You are still listening, she said. Her voice, like water over smooth stones, like the hush of the tide drawing secrets from the shore. Roman exhaled a laugh, though there was no jest in his eyes. You sing a dangerous song, Selene, and yet you still followed the melody. Her fingers brushed the surface of the water, and where they touched, the ocean obeyed, ripples forming perfect circles, the sea bending to her will. Why do you seek the pearl, pirate? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Ronan hesitated, watching her with the wariness of a man who had spent his life cheating fate. They say it gives power over the sea. Selene's gaze did not waver. The sea does not belong to men. A challenge, a warning, an invitation. Roman leaned forward, his voice lower now, softer. Then tell me, Siren, what does? The space between them tightened, the tide inching closer, drawn as if by something unseen. Selene did not answer, not with words at least. The waves rose around her, lifting her just enough that the moonlight framed her face, that the salt-scented breeze tangled the strands of her midnight hair. And for a moment, just a moment, she was no longer the siren, and he was no longer the pirate. There were simply two souls standing at the edge of something vast, something neither of them could name. But the ocean knew, and the ocean never forgot. The night stretched endless over the sea, a vast canvas of ink and silver. The stars blinked like watchful eyes, bearing witness to something rare, something forbidden. Captain Ronan Drake had always belonged to the ocean, but tonight it felt as if the ocean belonged to her. Selene. The name tasted like salt and mystery, like something meant to be whispered between the crash of waves. She lingered at the edge of the ship's reach, half submerged in the moonlit waters, her gaze steady, unblinking. Ronan had faced storms that could tear a man apart, stared down the barrels of enemy guns, and laughed in the face of death. But under her eyes, he felt something different, a pull deeper than the tide, a call stronger than any siren song. Do you not fear me, pirate? Selene's voice was the hush of waves over sand, smooth and knowing. Roman tilted his head, a smirk playing on his lips. Should I? She drifted closer, the water parting as if it made way for her alone. I have taken men to the depths with only a song. And yet, Ronan murmured, leaning against the railing, here I stand. Selene lifted a hand, letting droplets slip between her fingers. Not for long. Before he could answer, a wave rocked the ship, not in anger, but in invitation. A challenge wrapped in moonlight. Ronan's grip tightened on the wood beneath his fingers. Every instinct told him to stay, to keep his boots firm on the deck where he ruled, but something greater than reason pushed him forward. With a slow breath, he stepped onto the rail. The crew, watching from the shadows, whispered warnings under their breath, but none dared stop him. Then, with nothing but the stars to witness, he leaped. The sea welcomed him with open arms, cold, endless, alive. For a moment, all was silence. Then her hand found his. Selene pulled him through the water with effortless grace, the ocean bending around them like a lover's embrace. She was no mere mermaid, no simple creature of legend. She was the sea itself. And now, for the first time, Ronan felt what it meant to be part of it. The waves carried them away from the ship, into the depths where the water glowed with the whispers of forgotten stars. Strange fish wove between them, their scales gleaming like jewels, but Ronan only saw her. Salt clung to his lips, the ocean running its fingers through his hair, but none of it compared to the touch of her hand in his. "You not belong here," Celine murmured, though her grip did not loosen. "And yet," Ronan echoed, voice low, "here I am." Celine's gaze searched his, a silent battle of wills, of want, of fate unraveling in the dark. The sea had kept her for itself for so long. No man had dared to take what was not meant for them. But Ronan was no ordinary man. His fingers traced the outline of her palm, rough against smooth, fire against water. The ocean shifted around them, neither pushing nor pulling, simply waiting. For a choice. For a promise. For something neither of them could take back. And in that moment, in the hush of waves and the glow of a world untouched by men, the pirate and the siren became part of the same story. A tale the ocean would never let die. The sea was not meant to hold men, and yet Ronan Drake drifted within its embrace, weightless, untethered. The water whispered around him, cool fingers tracing his skin as if learning the shape of him. He had spent his life conquering the ocean, bending its will with sails and steel, but now it moved him as it pleased, or rather she did. Celine. She swam beside him, her presence as fluid as the tide, watching with eyes that held the secrets of the deep. Her hair floated like dark ribbons, caught in the silent currents, and the pearl at her throat pulsed with a quiet glow. For all the dangers whispered of sirens, she was not a monster. She was something far more terrifying, something untouchable, something meant to be worshipped from afar. But Ronan had never been a man to obey rules. He reached for her, his fingers grazing the silk of her arm. The ocean trembled at the touch, ripples spinning outward as if it, too, had been waiting. Celine did not pull away. "You are reckless," she murmured, her voice soft, carrying through the water like a psalm only he could hear. A slow smile curled at the edge of Ronan's lips. "I've been called worse." She tilted her head, her gaze searching, unreadable. Men do not touch the sea and live to tell the tale. And yet, Ronan whispered, fingers tracing the edge of her palm, "Here I am." Celine's breath was a sigh against the waves, for now. Her free hand lifted, fingers brushing his cheek, light as foam upon the shore. The warmth of it startled him, the contrast of something so fierce, so untamed, yet so gentle. The sea had never been kind, but in this moment, it did not push him away. Instead, it held him still, letting the silence stretch between them, heavy with things unspoken. "You have not asked why I came back," she said, her lips barely parting. Roman's eyes darkened, the weight of his answer pressing against his ribs. "Because I already know." Celine blinked, her expression unreadable, but something in her gaze softened, a flicker of something dangerous, understanding. Her fingers curled over his, the smallest movement, yet it sent a shiver through the water. The ocean knew, the stars above knew. This was the moment before the storm. A promise, unspoken, a tether neither of them could see, yet neither wished to sever. But fate had never been kind to those who dared steal from the sea. A sudden boom shattered the silence. The water around them trembled, pulsing with an unseen force. Celine's eyes widened, her fingers tightening around his just as a shadow loomed above. The ship. The crew had thrown anchor, and with it, they had woken something beneath. The ocean roared, waves rising, churning, as if protesting the trespass. Celine's hold on Ronan faltered, her expression turning sharp with warning. "They are coming." Ronan's jaw clenched. "Who?" But the answer came before she could speak. From the deep, a shape rose, dark, ancient, angry. Not all that lived beneath the waves sang love songs. Some sang of vengeance. And the ocean had decided it would not let him go so easily. The ocean shuddered, a deep tremor that rattled through the water like a warning from something ancient and unseen. Ronan Drake had spent his life on these seas, but he had never felt them move like this, like they were alive, like they had woken from a restless sleep. And Celine? She was no longer just a siren in the moonlight. Her gaze had sharpened, her lips no longer curled in mystery, but pressed in quiet urgency. The pearl at her throat pulsed brighter, casting eerie light through the dark waves. "They have come," she whispered. A shadow stirred beneath them, deep as midnight, shifting like a monster stretching its limbs. Roman turned, his pulse hammering. "What is it?" Celine's fingers curled around his wrist, her grip unyielding. Something older than men. Then from below, a shape moved. It was not the sleek form of a shark, nor the shifting mass of a school of fish. It was something vast, something with too many limbs, something that did not belong to the waking world. A low boom pulsed through the water, a soundless roar that made the waves churn. Above them, the storm reaver lurched, the anchor chain rattling as if the ship itself was gasping for breath. The crew was shouting, ropes snapping, the wooden hull groaning under unseen pressure. And still the shadow rose. Ronan's instincts screamed for him to move, to swim back to his ship, to escape whatever lurked below. But Celine's grip held him fast. "No," she murmured, her eyes never leaving the darkness beneath. The waves trembled, rolling with something unseen. Then, through the abyss, an eye opened. It was large as a sail, glowing with an unnatural light, a swirling storm of silver and abyssal black. It locked onto them, onto him, and for the first time in years, Captain Ronan Drake felt truly small. Celine's voice came softer now, but it held the weight of the tide itself. "You should not have come." Ronan turned to her, his breath slow, controlled. "Neither should you." Her lips parted, a flash of something unspoken in her gaze, but there was no time left. The sea roared, waves crashing upward, pulling at Ronan's limbs. The shadow surged, a tangle of limbs and hunger, reaching. And Celine moved. In a blur of silver and dark hair, she wove between the currents, her hand outstretched, her pearl glowing like a second moon beneath the surface. A barrier formed, an invisible shield between them and the beast, a pulse of oceanic power surging outward. The creature hesitated, its monstrous tendrils curling back as if it, too, had heard the song of the siren and knew its place. For a moment, the sea held its breath. Celine turned to Ronan, her voice low but steady. "You must go." Ronan's jaw tightened. "Not without you." The ocean raged around them, the ship above listing dangerously, but in this moment, there was only her. Celine's fingers brushed his once more, a fleeting touch, light as foam upon the shore. "If you stay, the sea will keep you." Ronan exhaled, his heart warring against his mind. He had defied kings, outrun navy fleets, cheated death itself. But this was something he could not fight. She was asking him to leave. The storm above raged, the depths below writhed. And Ronan, the pirate who had never turned his back on a challenge, made the hardest choice of his life. He let go. The tide took him, pulling him upward, flinging him toward his ship like a discarded promise. And the last thing he saw before the ocean swallowed her whole was Celine sinking into the abyss. The wind had stilled, the storm long passed, but Roman Drake felt no peace. The storm reaver cut through the black waters, the sails heavy with silence, the crew avoiding their captain's gaze. They had seen the way he had fought against the sea, how he had reached for something impossible, only for the ocean to steal it from him. Celine was gone. But Ronan did not believe in losses, not when the tide still whispered her name. He stood at the bow, the world stretched endlessly before him, but his mind was beneath the waves, where she had disappeared into the abyss. She had touched him, a fleeting press of fingers, a silent promise, a warmth the ocean could not wash away. And then she was gone. Ronan closed his eyes, his hand tightening around the pearl hanging from his neck. He could still feel her presence there, like the lingering scent of salt and moonlight. He would find her. He had to. The sea listens to those who bleed for it. That night, under a sky thick with watching stars, Ronan took his blade and pressed it to his palm. The cold bite of steel was nothing. The pain was nothing. The blood that dripped onto the wooden deck was an offering, a call to something greater, something unseen. The ocean had always taken. Now it would give. The wind stirred, the ship shifting as if sensing something unseen. The waves lapped hungrily against the hull, whispering in voices too old to name. And then the sea answered. A ripple in the water, a shadow beneath the waves, A voice, smooth as glass, rising from the depths. Foolish, reckless, stubborn thing. The water parted, and she appeared. Not Selene, but another. A woman of the deep, her hair the color of the night sea, her eyes dark as the trenches where no light reached. She wore the ocean, her skin glistening with droplets that never fell, and around her throat hung pearls that pulsed with the memories of drowned men. A sea witch. Roman did not flinch. I knew her back. The witch tilted her head, amused. The sea does not return what it has claimed. Then I will take her. A slow, knowing smile. Ah, pirates, always stealing what is not theirs. Roman's pulse was steady, his will unshaken. Name your price. The witch circled him, waves curling at her ankles, though she stood upon nothing but water. A life for a life, she murmured, her fingers ghosting over his chest, stopping where his heart beat steady and strong. Would you trade your own? Ronan's jaw clenched. Not because he feared death, he never had, but because Selene would never forgive him for it. No, his voice was steel. I will not die for her. The witch's dark eyes glittered. Then you are not worthy of her. Ronan exhaled slowly, his mind racing. If not my life, then what? The witch's lips curled. She had been waiting for that question. A promise, Captain Drake. Ronan met her gaze. What kind of promise? The witch leaned close, her voice sinking into the marrow of his bones. That when the time comes, you will let her go. His heart lurched. The wind howled. The ocean waited. And Roman knew he was making a deal with something far more dangerous than the storm. But he had no choice. So he swore it. And the sea shuddered as the bargain was sealed. The storm reaver cut through the water like a dagger drawn under moonlight. The sea was calmer now, but it carried attention, as if it knew a promise had been made. Captain Ronan Drake stood at the bow, eyes locked on the horizon, where the waves stretched endless and silver beneath the night sky. His palms still bore the faint stain of blood, his offering to the depths, and though the sea witch had vanished, her words remained, coiling around his mind like phantom tides. When the time comes, you will let her go. But Roman had never been a man of surrender. The descent. The crew whispered of curses, of madness, but they did not stop him. They knew better than to stand between their captain and something he had set his heart upon. The moment the anchor hit the ocean floor, he dove. The water wrapped around him, colder than breath, heavier than thought. The deeper he swam, the more the world above faded, the ship becoming nothing more than a memory blurred by the waves. And then light. A glow pulsed in the deep, soft as moonlight, strong as a heartbeat. He followed it. The water thickened, the pressure tightening, but he did not stop. The pulse called to him, a beacon in the abyss. And then, through the shifting darkness, he saw her, Selene. She was suspended in the water, her body woven into strands of glowing seaweed, pearls tangled in her dark hair, her tail shimmering like liquid silver. She did not struggle, did not stir, as if she belonged to the depths now. Ronan reached for her, his fingers brushing her cheek. Cold, but not lifeless. He pressed his forehead against hers, his breath escaping in slow silver bubbles. He was here. He had come for her. And then her lashes fluttered. Her lips parted, her voice a whisper against the water. You shouldn't have come. But Roman only held her closer. I go where you are. The ocean awakens. The sea did not take kindly to thieves. A roar vibrated through the deep, a tremor that shook the water itself. The tendrils of glowing seaweed tightened around Selene's body, resisting his grasp. The sea did not want to let her go. A shadow stirred beneath them, a great ancient thing, moving like the turning of the tide itself. Selene gasped, her hands suddenly clutching his, her fingers tangling into his hair, as if she could keep him from being pulled away. Ronan. A single word, a plea wrapped in salt and sorrow. He wouldn't leave her. He couldn't. With a growl of defiance, he unsheathed his blade and slashed through the tendrils that bound her. The moment they snapped, the ocean screamed. A force yanked them both upward, a current not of nature, but of something angry, something awake. The sea was fighting for her, but so was he. Ronan held her close, his arms unyielding as the ocean raged, as the depths tried to take her back. Celine pressed against him, her breath mixing with his, her lips ghosting against his ear. "You don't understand, the ocean." But he silenced her with a touch, a press of his hand against her heart. "I made a bargain, Celine." His voice was steady, even as the sea rose around them. "And I will not break it." The storm was coming, but he would fight the tide itself to bring her home. The sea was alive. It churned and roared as if it could shake them loose, as if it could reclaim what Ronan Drake was trying to steal. The moment he severed the last vine of glowing seaweed, the ocean screamed in fury. Celine's arms were around him now, her body pressing into his as if she feared the water would pull them apart. Her silver tail, once still and lifeless, moved, curling through the currents like a ribbon of moonlight. But something was wrong. She trembled against him, her breath shallow, her fingers gripping his coat as if she already knew what he did not. "Ronan," she whispered, her voice lost in the waves. A shadow moved below them, ancient, endless, a force that had washed over these waters for longer than time itself. The ocean had come to collect its due. A promise in the depths. The currents tightened around them, dragging them deeper instead of letting them rise. It wasn't just rage, it was a reminder. The sea witch's words echoed in Roman's mind. "When the time comes, you will let her go." His jaw clenched. No, no. But Celine already knew. She cupped his face with trembling hands, her touch softer than the tides, gentler than the storm inside him. "You made a bargain." Her eyes shimmered, the ocean's reflection held within them. "And the sea does not forget." He would not accept it. He pulled her closer, his lips brushing against her temple, his arms wrapping around her as if sheer will could keep her in his grasp. "Then I'll fight it." Celine gave him a sad, knowing smile. "You cannot fight the ocean, love." And then the sea pulled her away. The pirate's choice. A force ripped her from his arms, the water between them shuddering, darkening, sealing the space where she had been. Ronan fought. He reached, he kicked, he cursed, his blade flashing as if he could cut the very sea in half. But the water was no longer his to command. Celine hovered before him, the current spiraling around her like silver chains. The ocean wanted her, and if he tried to keep her, it would take him too. Celine's fingers touched her lips, then stretched toward him, a farewell, a promise, a love eternal and unfinished. "Go," she whispered, her voice carried by the water. "Live." The sea pushed him upward, the force violent, unyielding. The last thing he saw was her eyes, full of sorrow, full of love, full of the ocean itself. Then, darkness. The pirate who loved the sea. The storm reaver rocked under the weight of a man pulled from the depths. The crew rushed to his side, dragging him onto the deck, shaking him as he coughed up salt and loss. The ocean was calm now. The storm had passed. The sea had taken what it came for. And Captain Ronan Drake lay upon the wooden planks, staring at the sky, empty, breathless, broken. He had won her back, only to lose her again. A hand drifted to his chest, where a single pearl still hung on his cord, her pearl. He closed his fingers around it, pressing it against his heart. The sea had taken her. But in the tides and the winds, in every wave that crashed against his ship, she was still there, waiting, watching, loving him from the depths. And he would sail until the day the ocean called him home.